On November 20, 2018, an adventurous English backpacker named Grace Millane touched down in New Zealand, ready to soak in the stunning landscapes and vibrant culture. It was just another stop on her solo world tour, a trip she'd dreamed of for years. After spending over a month trekking through South America, Grace was all set for a 2-week escape in New Zealand. But just 10 days after she arrived in Auckland, she vanished. Completely. Like, poof, gone. Naturally, her family and friends were freaked out. What started as a desperate search for a missing tourist quickly took a sinister turn. Soon, headlines around the globe were buzzing with a new twist. Her disappearance wasn't just a mystery, it was a murder investigation. And when 26-year-old Jesse Kempson was arrested, charged, and thrust into the spotlight, the world couldn't help but ask, how did Grace meet Kempson? What led to this horrifying outcome? And what on earth happened in those final hours? Don't click away, because in this video, we're diving headfirst into the haunting story of Grace Millane, a case that rocked New Zealand and sent chills down the spines of seasoned investigators everywhere. Hi, I'm Mark, and welcome to True Crime Stories. Today, we're unraveling a heartbreaking tale, a young woman's dream trip turned into an unimaginable nightmare. A case that starts with wanderlust but ends with devastating tragedy. So grab your popcorn or, brace yourself, because this is about to get dark. Let's rewind. Grace Millane, born on December 2, 1996 in Wickford, Essex, was a bright, vibrant soul. The youngest of 3 kids in a close-knit family, she was known for her big heart, boundless energy, and killer sense of humor. She breezed through school, made friends wherever she went, and eventually earned a degree in advertising and marketing from the University of Lincoln. But Grace wasn't your average graduate. Nope, this girl had wanderlust pulsing through her veins. After saving up her hard-earned cash, Grace set out on the adventure of a lifetime. Her solo backpacking trip kicked off in South America, where she spent 6 weeks snapping Instagram striking pics and living her best life. But it was New Zealand that she'd been most excited about, a dream destination on her bucket list. Fast forward to November 30, 2018, Grace checked into Base Backpackers Hostel in Auckland, where she continued her habit of swiping on Tinder. Enter Jesse Kempson, a guy she matched with and agreed to meet the next day. Now, red flags weren't exactly flapping in the wind just yet, but let's just say things were about to go sideways in the worst way imaginable. On December 1st, Grace met Kempson at Sky City. She was expecting a fun night out, but by the next day, her 22nd birthday, things took a chilling turn. Grace's social media, which she updated religiously, went silent. Calls from her family went unanswered. And by December 5th, when her parents couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something was horribly wrong, they contacted Auckland police. At first, the cops didn't exactly spring into action. They assumed Grace might have just gotten caught up in some vacation fling. But as the hours turned into days and unsettling details started to surface, the investigation shifted into overdrive. And this is where things get dark. Brace yourselves, because what investigators uncovered next shocked even the most seasoned detectives. The trail of clues led straight to Kempson, and what he told authorities? Let's just say it didn't exactly add up. But hold up. Before we dive into the bone-chilling details of how Grace's story ends, let's pause for a question. If you had interests or hobbies that might make you vulnerable to dangerous situations, would you share them with your friends or keep them locked away? Let us know in the comments below. Now back to Grace. This vibrant, talented woman was so much more than just a headline. Her love of art, her adventurous spirit, her boundless energy, all of it painted the picture of someone who had her whole life ahead of her. She was a daughter, a sister, and a friend. And what happened to her wasn't just tragic, it was senseless and cruel. As we unravel the timeline of events, the evidence, and the trial that followed, you'll see how a charismatic traveler crossed paths with a man who hid a monstrous secret. From a vibrant young woman exploring the world to a case that still haunts New Zealand, this is the story of Grace Millane. Stay tuned till the very end, because you won't want to miss the shocking details that finally brought Kempson to justice. And trust me, it's a wild ride. Newly made friends after a night out. Another assumption was that her phone might have died and she would contact her family soon. But when the authorities contacted Buzz Backpackers Hostel to get information about Grace Millane, they were surprised to know that she hadn't checked in after December 1st, the day she left to meet Jesse Kempson. What was even more surprising was that all of Grace's belongings were still in the hostel. The Auckland police now expedited their search for Grace Millane. They began gathering CCTV footage from the local bars, hotels, and restaurants. This is when the authorities discovered that Grace had last gone to Sky City to meet someone. The CCTV footage showed that Grace was approached by Kempson confidently, but then he hugged her in an awkward manner after the exchange of greetings. The two left the place and went towards Andy's Burger Bar. The footage obtained by the police didn't just capture Grace meeting Kempson, but also showed what happened in the following hours in the bar while enjoying their drinks. The couple looked as if they were having a good time, and Grace's actions didn't show any alarming signs. Both Grace and Kempson embraced each other on multiple occasions and even kissed a few times. Fast forward to 9:40 p.m. on the same night, and the CCTV footage shows the couple heading towards Jesse Con's apartment. Grace looked extremely comfortable with her date, and it seemed as if the two had known each other for years. Their arms were wrapped around each other, showing the young couple had a good night out up until that point in the CCTV footage. Everything seemed normal, except one thing. While the couple was in the bar, Grace left her seat to use the restroom. And as soon as she left, Jesse Kempson immediately started going through her belongings in the purse that she had left on her seat while on the date. Grace was in touch with her friend in England, Amina Ashcroft, while Amina's statements later revealed that Grace was having a good time with Kempson, liked her date. She also told the media that from her texts it was clear that Grace was pretty drunk. Mina also revealed that, while she saw some red flags in Kempson when Grace described him, she didn't say much, because Grace was having a good time. Grace told her friend that she clicked with her date well, and in her last text, she told Amina that she would contact her tomorrow and let her know what happened next. Up until this point, the authorities didn't know exactly who Grace's date was, but when the police were going through Grace's social media, they noticed that soon after Grace returned from the restroom, a person named Jesse Kempson commented on her Facebook profile picture with the comment reading, "Beautiful, very radiant." That comment was what led the authorities to their suspect. Linked to Grace's disappearance, the 26-year-old Jesse Kempson was born on December 28, 1991 in New Zealand, and grew up in Wellington. His parents separated when he was 9, and afterwards he was mainly brought up by her father and his grandfather. The police investigation later revealed that Jesse had a volatile upbringing with trauma, the complete opposite of Grace's childhood. When his family and friends were interviewed, nobody seemed to like him, and almost everyone called him a compulsive liar. Jesse's stepbrother told the police that he was a pathological liar who loved having power over people, so much so that Jesse had even lied to some people that he was dying of cancer. His landlord told the police that he initially believed that Jesse was a top manager for a company called Woolworth and was making 6 figures a year. But that turned out to be a lie when the landlord found out that Jesse hardly left the apartment building. And it was the state benefits that were paying his rent. Jesse had lied to multiple people about his profession. Some people thought he was a successful businessman, while others believed he was a professional softball player. In reality, Jesse was working as a telephone sales operative. What was more interesting was that he was fired from his job for lying. On the same day he met identifying Jesse Kempson, the authorities knew he was their person of interest, and there was some link between him and Grace's disappearance. The investigators went to Jesse's apartment building, but he wasn't there. After a while, he arrived at the building, but as soon as he saw the police, he hurriedly turned around and tried to hide his face from the officers. One of the officers spotted him and chased him. As people stood by and watched, the police eventually caught up to Jesse and brought him in for questioning. When Jesse Kempson was asked about the events of the night Grace Millane disappeared, he told the authorities that he met Grace at Sky City because he didn't know whether or not Grace was a real person, since a lot of catfishing also goes on Tinder. He further shared that when they ended the night, the couple gave each other a hug and a kiss, and went their separate ways after agreeing to keep in touch with each other. The investigators didn't buy Jesse Kempson's stories because of the CCTV footage they had seen. According to the footage, Jesse and Grace got off an elevator and headed towards his apartment. When the authorities searched Jesse Kempson's studio apartment and looked into him, through different sources they discovered that he had an unusual personality. He was estranged from his family and also claimed to have been diagnosed with anxiety recently. What caught the investigators' interest was a post on Jesse's Facebook profile from a couple of weeks before he met Grace. In the post, he was extremely apologetic and asked for forgiveness from all the people he had wronged. In one of the sentences of the post, Jesse wrote that his arrogance and selfishness had affected his relationships with people in his personal life. Jesse seemed to have shown red flags to almost everyone who had interacted with him, including the girls he had dated. All of them described him as overbearing and controlling, even if he had just started seeing them. He portrayed himself as a sophisticated and well-dressed person, but soon showed his true colors. He repeatedly asked his dates about their sexual experiences and tried to get as much personal information from them as possible. The authorities went through nearly 6 terabytes of data from the CCTV footage and closely looked at each and every one of Jesse Kempson's movements on the 2nd of December 2018, the day Grace Millane was supposed to celebrate her 22nd birthday. The cameras in Jesse's apartment building captured him getting into an elevator at 8 a.m. On the 2nd of December, he was alone and went into the building's lobby before heading towards the atrium on Elliott. After a few minutes, he arrived at the atrium and went to the baggage section to get a suitcase. After that, he got some cleaning supplies before checking out around 11 a.m. Jesse Kempson went to a car rental company in Auckland and rented a red Toyota Corolla. Jesse's behavior throughout the day was unusual. The authorities were surprised to see that, just a few hours after getting the suitcase and cleaning supplies, Jesse went out on a date with some girl. But it wasn't Grace Millane. The police were able to get in touch with Jesse's Tinder date on the 2nd of December and interviewed him to get any information that might lead them to Grace Millane. The girl told the authorities that throughout the date, Jesse Kempson had made her feel extremely uncomfortable. She also revealed that Jesse talked about buying a large duffel bag for sports equipment and even discussed the topic of murder with her. He told her that it was both interesting and crazy that one wrong move by a murderer could land them in jail for the rest of their life. Have you ever discussed a topic as bizarre and scary as murder on your first date with someone? Comment below and let us know. Jesse Kempson told his Tinder date that he knew a guy who had asked his girlfriend to have rough sex with him that involved strangulation and suffocation. He then revealed the experiment went wrong, and the guy tried to revive the girl, but it was too late by then. Eventually, his friend was charged with manslaughter. While it was already disturbing enough for his date, Jesse went on with his story and told her that the police dogs can only sniff dead bodies buried more than 40 below the ground. By that point, it was clear to the woman that she wasn't on a date with her usual guy. And still he could not stop. Immediately wanted to leave the date when she was leaving. Jesse Kempson offered her a ride home, but she declined. Kempson was unfazed by what happened during the date and went on with his day as usual. He collected cleaning supplies and rented a rug cleaning machine. He told the employees of the rental company that he was renting the machine for red wine stains on his carpet. The CCTV footage showed that Jesse Kempson returned to his apartment building a little before 9 p.m. on December 2nd and took the cleaning machine to his apartment. Jesse was back in the building's elevator at 9:30 p.m., but this time with a trolley that had 2 seemingly heavy suitcases on it. He packed the suitcases in the trunk of his rental car before returning back to the lobby around 7 a.m. on December 3rd, 2018. Jesse Kempson went on another suspicious shopping trip, where he bought a shovel. He then went to a dry cleaner and dropped off the suitcase before heading towards the car wash. The CCTV camera at the car wash showed Jesse Power washing the car before returning it to the rental company. On December 5th, 2018, CCTV cameras around the city captured Jesse Kempson dumping bags in different dumpsters in Auckland on December 6. Grace's father flew to Auckland to help the authorities with the search for his daughter. He also pleaded with the public to help find his daughter. In a press conference with an official from Auckland Police, David Main understandably looked heartbroken. Stopped on multiple occasions to regain his composure, the police official told the media that they had found a person of interest linked to Grace's disappearance during his first interview with the Auckland law enforcement authorities. Jesse Kempson had told the investigators that he had last seen Grace Millane at 10 p.m. on the 1st of December, when they said goodbye to each other and never saw her again. He also told the police that she had blocked him on Tinder afterward, when the authorities interviewed him again after a few days. Jesse's story had changed during the second interview. He told them when the couple returned to his apartment, they were very drunk and started making out. He then told the officers that Grace suddenly turned the music down and started talking about 50 Shades of Grey and bondage. He said that after the talking was over, they started having sex, and after a while Grace told him that there were a few things that she liked doing during sex and had experienced with her ex-partner. After that, Grace started biting him and asked him to bite her as well. He asked her if she was sure about it, and she consented to it. Jesse continued with his story and told the authorities that Grace then spanked him and then held him around the neck and choked him. So, let me paint you a picture. A guy and a girl meet on Tinder, decide to hang out, and things seem totally normal. Spoiler alert, they weren't. And by the end of this story, you're going to be side-eyeing Tinder dates forever. Grace Millane, a bright, adventurous 22-year-old, met Jesse Kempson on the night of December 1st, 2018. They were in Auckland, New Zealand, and Grace was just out trying to enjoy life during her backpacking trip. But what she thought was going to be a fun date turned into the darkest night of her life. According to Jesse's version, and trust me, his story unravels faster than cheap wrapping paper, they had consensual rough sex. Grace allegedly asked him to choke her, and after the whole thing was over, he took a shower, accidentally fell asleep in there because sure, that happens, and when he woke up, he claims he assumed Grace had left. Oh, but plot twist, when the lights came on the next morning, there she was, on the floor, blood coming out of her nose. Jesse swore up and down that her death was a tragic accident, just a case of rough sex gone too far, right? Wrong, because when the police started digging, both figuratively and literally, his story fell apart faster than my New Year's resolutions. Let's start with the crime scene. The police found Grace's blood soaked into the carpet in Jesse's apartment. We're not talking about a tiny drop here. We're talking about enough blood to suggest something violent and horrifying had gone down. And when they pressed Jesse for answers about where Grace was, he agreed to take them to the spot where he had buried her. Her body was found in the Waitakere Ranges, 12 miles west of Auckland, on December 9, 2018. A tragic end to what was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime. But wait, there's more. Jesse's rough sex accident story completely crumbled when investigators pulled his digital footprint. Let me walk you through this real quick. While Grace lay dead, Jesse wasn't exactly panicking or calling for help. Nope. The dude was casually Googling things like hottest fire and Waitakere Ranges. Oh, and if that wasn't gross enough, he took intimate photos of Grace's lifeless body and browsed porn sites. Let me recapture that for your viewing. So, Garon, writing in your journal, your porn, yeah, you heard that right. This guy wasn't just a murderer. He was straight up twisted. The autopsy revealed that Grace's death wasn't accidental at all. She had bruises on her arms and chest, and the force applied to her neck lasted for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's not a spur-of-the-moment mishap. That's cold, calculated murder. Prosecutors argued, and rightfully so, that Jesse's intent was deliberate. He didn't just take Grace's life. He took photos of her body and treated her death like some sick trophy. And here's the chilling part. Investigators believe he would have done the same thing to another woman if Grace hadn't been his victim that night. When the trial rolled around in November 2019, Jesse tried to keep his identity hidden, filing appeal after appeal to block the media from using his name. But by February 2020, the court was like, yeah, no, and lifted the name suppression. Turns out, this guy wasn't just a murderer. He was also convicted of other crimes, 9 charges in total, including sexual violation and threatening to kill. The jury didn't even need much time to decide. On February 21, 2020, they unanimously found him guilty of Grace's murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. And honestly, that's the least he deserved. Grace's death sent shockwaves across New Zealand and the world. It was a case that sparked outrage, sorrow, and an overwhelming sense of loss. Even the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, publicly apologized to Grace's family on behalf of the country. Grace's parents, David and Gillian Millane, spoke out after the verdict. Their words were heartbreaking. They described Grace as the sunshine of their family, someone who brought light and joy wherever she went. Her brutal murder left a hole in their lives that could never be filled. This case isn't just about one monster's actions. It's a stark reminder of the dangers people, especially women, can face in situations that should be safe. Grace was young, vibrant, talented, and full of life. Her story is one that no one should ever forget. So, that's the horrifying case of Grace Millane. What do you think? Does this case make you rethink online dating, or are you already giving Tinder the side eye? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. For now, I'm Mark, and this was True Crime Stories. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.